All right, it is now time to kickstart our Thai team presentation. So buckle in your seats, get your popcorn, because you're about to go on a journey. And here we go. I'm going to hand over to young Mitch.
All right. Well, morning everyone. So I know it's been a little bit, and some of us might be a little bit hazy in our memories, but we'll try and bring you back what God said to us during our trip. So to start off with, everyone you'll see today went along the trip, but we also have our wonderful, oh my goodness, Jins, my memory's failing, and Carol with us as well, so they were also on the trip. But to start off with, I thought I'd go through some of my expectations that were kind of a bit broken during the trip. Do you want it up more, Simon? That's very high up. So some of my expectations that were broken. First one that I didn't expect to be broken. So I was on the train coming into Bangkok. It was just me at this point. The others hadn't got there yet. And I was kind of a bit confused and lost, and I didn't have any cell reception because I hadn't sorted that out yet. And my phone was on low battery, and I was like, I'll figure it out at some point. It'll be right. But, it was actually a little bit more confusing than I thought, so surprisingly. But I met this dude as I was going down the escalator, and he, showed me onto the train and, bought me a ticket. I was, a little bit apprehensive. I was because I gave him 1,000 baht, which is apparently a lot, but $50 for reference, but the train ticket cost 40 baht, and I was like, wow, that's a lot, but he apparently got me a deal. So I was like, sweet. And I think he actually did, because it was actually the local price instead of the international price. So I was like, he's actually seems like a good dude. But I was still apprehensive. I was like, somehow this dude's going to scam me. And I'm like, I have no idea why. I have no idea. And at the same time I'm thinking that he's going to scam me, we're also just having a nice pleasant chat about where he's been overseas and why I'm coming to Thailand. And so that was my first expectation. And I didn't even know why I had that thought. I was like, why is he going to scam me? And this thought didn't last for 30 seconds. It lasted for the whole journey into Bangkok. It took me 15 minutes to get over this. So I prayed to God, and eventually, I don't even know why. God didn't even tell me why it happened. It just happened. But we kind of sorted it out. My second expectation that was broken, something I thought would be easy, but wasn't. We went and taught English at a school. And I've taught lessons before. I've taught a bunch of lessons. Lessons are pretty easy, right? You go in, you talk about something for a while, and eventually you leave. I was going to try and switch slides, but I'm forgetting about that. But I thought that would be easy. It turns out it was the most challenging lesson I've ever taught. Jins and I were teaching together. We had a disagreement in our first lesson about how we were going to teach it. We couldn't figure out how to do it. We were like, how do we translate this? We're out of our minds, just confused. It's hot, it's sweaty. We don't know what's happening. But as the day goes on, we surprisingly teach 4 lessons. We weren't expecting 2, we were thinking we'd teach 1. But we kind of figure it out eventually. And through talking to each other, taking little breaks and chatting with God, eventually we got there. And I think we did at least 2 decent lessons. And finally, something that I found much easier and more rewarding than I thought was actually with the people in Thailand. And we were often after we'd do a presentation or we'd meet some people or play a game, we'd kind of sit down and just chat with a few people afterwards. So either through Jeanette or Chabar or Google Translate, it was so much easier just having a conversation with someone in a completely foreign language than we expected. Talking about who we were, talking about where they were and who they were, and talking about a little bit of our relationships with God, with them. And that was something that really blew me away with actually how much easier that was than I thought it was going to be. So today, we're just going to go through a little bit of what our stories and things that happened on our trip and how God showed up with where we were. And then think about what is going to be our future relationship and vision for what we think is going to be happening with St Albans in Thailand and what is happening in Thailand in general too. So I'm going to pass it over to the lovely Jeanette and Chabar.
Thank you. So most of you all know I'm Jeanette, and I want to give you a bit of background to Pon and Lek. And this is the lovely Chaba, who's a Thai lady who came on the team with us too. And she's going to give a wee bit of testimony in a few minutes. So I met Pon 40 years ago. She came to live with me. We had a student ministry in Lopbury, and I had a student flat. And she was an 18-year-old. And so she came to live with me, and she was working during the day and studying at night. So she stayed with me. She was from a very difficult background. She was really rejected. She was very quiet and broken, couldn't relate very well. And I didn't know how to relate very well either. So she stayed about 4 months with me, and then she moved to stay with her sister, who she's now looking after, who has Alzheimer's. And so I said to the Lord, when Pon left staying with me, I said, Lord, I don't know how to help people who are wounded emotionally. I need you to train me. I didn't know that I also needed healing at that point, but God's done a good job along the way. So God took Pon to Bible college, and she did training. Then she was a teacher for missionaries for about 8 years, and then she decided, well, God called her to be a pastor. And so she planted a church in Lopbury, saw many, many people coming to the Lord. In the meantime, Damisa, who's also here, her and I went to Wiset to carry on a ministry there that had been going on and off for many years. And we had a very difficult time. I had a year on my own, and then Damisa came to help me because I thought, I'm not going to survive on my own. And so at the end of 3 years, I was pretty stretched, and I said, I can't carry on anymore here. Anyway, I can't tell you the whole story, but God took Damisa and I to Bangkok to start an English language school, and that's the church which was planted with Sammai, and we went to visit him first. But God gave Pon a vision to go to Wiset. And she came all excited to tell me, and I said, don't be stupid. You'll die if you go there. I didn't survive, and most people who've been there haven't survived. She said, no, but God gave me the vision. Well, she'd been there 10 years now, and Lek went with her initially to start and help her for a couple of years. Then she went off and actually helped in a Bible college as a secretary. And now she's back there helping Pon. And so it was a wonderful privilege to be able to take the team to visit with Pon and Lek and see what they're doing. And we saw God, to see Pon 40 years later as a mature Christian woman who's one of the leaders of has oversight of a number of churches in central Thailand. She's now 60, ready to retire, looking for somebody to come in and help carry on the work. And so that's partly why we've been going back to help find somebody to carry on the work. Anyway, we had an amazing trip. I was totally blown away having such a marvellous team and seeing God at work in everyone's lives. Carol and I had prayed for weeks beforehand for everybody, and it was just like the Holy Spirit took over, and everybody was having experiences with God, and they're going to share some of them with you. And Chaba, this lovely lady who speaks Thai fluently, because she is a Thai, has lived in New Zealand 27 years, and she's been a Christian 3 years. And when she heard we were going to Thailand, she said, I want to go and find out what Christianity is like in Thailand. I don't know anything about Thai Christians. And so she had an amazing time. I wish she had. Ask her. She had an amazing time. She's got an amazing testimony. But we're just going to see, when we went to a number of places, Sammai's church, a prison, she gave a testimony in Thai to the Thai. And of course they loved it. They were in tears because she could relate to many of the things. So we just have a brief look at that and see how Chaba flourished in Thailand, her own hometown, as well as... So she's telling them about the background of her life. So we just wanted you to see how well she does in Thai, of course. She really connects. Okay, so now we're just going to ask Chaba to share a wee bit of her thoughts being on the team. Thanks, Chaba. You can hold that.
Thank you, Jenny.
Close up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shaba. I'm Thai, and thank God for bringing me to know Janet and everyone in here, St. Alban Baptist Church. This beginning for joy with the team mission to Thailand, and sorry. Was very impressed in the trip. I have learned a lot from the team and the Thai people I meet in Thailand. I saw the kindness, sensitivity, and determination and unity in diversity to work for everyone in Thailand and my team. I have a good team and a good leader, Steve. And I have a good experience and very happy. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for fulfilling my dream. I promise I will do it again, and again. Thank God for loving us, take care of us, support us, and being with us all the time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say how much I appreciated Steve's leadership too. He was awesome and really affirmed every one of us every day. We all came home on cloud nine. Thank you.
Kia ora, church. So, a little bit about me. I've just got permission from Steve. I can take as long as I like. Okay. Up till now, he said 4 minutes, and I've been struggling to get this down to 4 minutes. Anyway, here we go. Okay, so first of all, as you well know, before I went, I didn't have my why or my reason for going. A week beforehand, I had a situation going on, and I misread what something said to me. And I was in a bit of a turmoil over 4 nights before the trip, how to deal with the situation. But anyway, God was working on me, and as each night went by, the issue I was dealing with got easier and easier to time where I felt a bit of peace. On the 4th night, God actually gave me an image or a vision, and I could see our team on a raft going down the river with Steve on the back as the captain, giving us orders what to do. Jabbar and Jeanette were in the front doing the communication, the translation, and the rest of us had our paddle, being the engine steering the raft down the river. And that image stuck with me for the whole trip over there. While I was in Thailand, God just drew me close and closer. Every morning I was doing my quiet time, God was just giving me bits and pieces of the Bible, verses that are appropriate for the day. Prior to the trip, I was asked to do devotions. And I thought, I don't know how to do devotions. I haven't done devotions before. I was a bit worried about this. Anyhow, God did a number on me. And while I was reading my quiet time, I was easy to get down to the breakfast and do devotions. Okay? So I've come back different. God's really has changed me in me and who I am, with my relationship with God. And I've started to do things differently since I've been back as well. So that's good, praise God. While I was over there, there are 3 things that there's 3 things that I want to talk about. So the first one is actually Pon and Lek. Right? So when we arrived in Wiset, okay, we arrived in this building, and it looked like a farm building, and out in the middle of the country. And I was thinking, 4 days here? What have I got myself into? Well, we was greeted by Pon. She's like a light bulb, and the rest of her team. Had lunch with them, you sit down and you start to figure out who these people are. And I have to say, there's people in my life, there's a handful of people in my life have left an imprint in me. And Pon and Lek are 2 people that left an imprint in me. I've come away and I can never forget them. So Pon is a bit like an Energizer bunny out the advert of the Energizer battery. She just kept going and going and going and going, just full of energy. And I mean, she's almost the same age as me, and she's left me for dead with her energy. And we got Lek, who's an unassuming lady in the background, but the pair of them work as a team. They are one unit, and are fired up and passionate for God. And the passion they've got for their community in Wiset, it seems that everywhere we went, Pon had a connection with everybody, and everybody engaged with Pon. It was just amazing. And she's just so humble with the community that she works in. The second thing I want to talk about is the prison. Okay, so when we arrived at the prison, it just seems as though we weren't supposed to get into the prison. So Mitch, Steve and I arrived wearing shorts, and you can't wear shorts, you have to wear long pants. That was the first problem. Anyway, the prison found us some long pants to wear. That's all good. Pon and Boy left their passports at home, so they had to go back and get their passports. It just seemed for a time there we weren't going to get into this prison. But God opened the doors for us, and we finally got into the prison. When we got into the prison, walked in there, and there was all these people, ladies in their prison uniforms, standing in a row. They were actually quite eager for us to hear what we had to say to them. So we sang some songs, and Pon being Pon, full of energy and engaging, she got the prisoners singing, doing the arm stuff, and they was all engaging. Chabar did her testimony, I've done my testimony, and you can see for her testimony, especially through Chabar, you can see the Holy Spirit moving across the prisoners. The Spirit of God was moving people, moving their hearts. And the thing I did notice, with all this, at the back of the room was a statue of a Buddha statue at the back of the room. At the end of it, was asked to put their hands up for salvation, and I think most of the prisoners put their hands up for salvation. It was amazing, praise God. And the last thing I want to talk about is the Early Childhood Centre. Okay, so we visited Early Childhood Centre in Bangkok, and it was in a slum area. And we drove into this area in the taxi. You look around. Honestly, this place was dark. It was grey, and to me, it was lifeless. Right? Yeah? Oh my word! I'd rather live in Bromley rubbish pit than live in this place. It was really quite gloomy. Anyway, we found the Early Childhood Centre underneath the motorway, and from that door, if you walk this way across the road, there's a railway line going through the place as well. It's a real gloomy place. But anyhow, you come to this place, it's white and green. My first impression was, wow, this is the Garden of Eden for these kids in the middle of a hole. Okay? One of the things I noticed was when you walk in, the children seem to be quite happy, clean, all in a uniform, being children. Now, my wife, she works at Early Childhood in New Zealand, in Christchurch. So I've been to a few of Early Childhood centres, and I've seen how kids being kids. And as much as we know that wherever we go in the world, God is God, right? Children are children, wherever. They just behaved. They're just normal kids as they were in New Zealand. But when we talked to the centre manager, but the teachers, it's a Christian centre, and I was just blown away how the centre manager and the teachers obviously don't live in the slum area, live in a pretty nice area. Every day can travel to work, through this area to serve God and look after these kids. Yep. So one thing I want to say, okay, I'd like to honour Jeanette and also Andrew and Jambovi, because I've begun to realise to be a missionary in these countries and serve God, okay, in these places, it just blows me away how they can do it. Yep. So I just honour you guys.
Well, that was well spoken, Graham. Good on you, mate. Okay, so Mitch talked to you about the high school and how we went in there to try and have a crack at teaching English. So I'm going to set a little bit of a scene because it was really, really daunting. You get there, so we're at a high school. So the preparation was My mother's name is, my father's name is, my favourite fruit is. So you went with some basic sentences. So we get to the school, and basically we're treated like absolute royalty. The director of the school, she looks like a princess. They've got the whole school there as assembly. They do a demonstration for us, so you feel like a king and a queen. It's hot. You're starting to sweat. You're thinking your lessons preparation is not good enough. We've got little wee pictures of cows and sheep and fields, etc. And we've got these, 150 to 200 students. We've actually got to impress teaching English. So you start to feel like kings and queens. You're going to be inadequate. It's not going to work. So you get separated into pairs. Graham and I were one pair. So we walk into this classroom, and basically there's about probably 30 kids looking at us. They're aged between 13 and 20. We thought they might have been 10 to 14, but 13 to 20. Then we realised some of them can actually speak quite good English, so they know how to say my mother's name is, my father's name is. So you're starting to sweat really, really bad. You're thinking, what are we going to do? Graham and I look at each other and think, God, you got to save us here because this is so challenging. So in the end, what we ended up doing, we did cities like Auckland, Wellington. So we'll say Auckland, they'd shout out Auckland, Wellington, Dunedin, Christchurch, Timaru, Otaki, Wanganui, Whangarei, Tasman Sea, Cook Strait, Invercargill. So we actually just had to entertain them because the lessons we had, they didn't want to do my mother's name is because they already knew that. But then when we did some little individual stuff, what would happen is we realised that probably a third of the class couldn't speak any English, but you didn't know that until you went in. So I tell you what, it was the toughest thing I have ever done in the context of what I've done in life. And I've had to go into some pretty challenging environments on insurance claims and the like. This was tough, but do you know what? 4 lessons later, I would do it again tomorrow. Absolutely, I'd go back there and I would teach English to that high school tomorrow because they crave to listen to Westerners speak English to them passionately, and that's what we did. But let's go to the next slide there, Mitch. There's a couple more. Okay, I want to talk about this piece here. So this was pretty for me. This is impressive. So I had a Thai massage. So we taught some English to a small school of about 15 kids. The day before, we got the ability to have a Thai massage, and I shouldn't have had a Thai massage because my back was just a disaster. It was hot. So this is the morning that we actually met with the poor families. You're going to hear about that in a moment. Anyway, Jeanette said to me, do you want to go and teach some English this afternoon? My back's killing me. I'm hot. I want to go back to the accommodation and have a rest. And I'm thinking, all these other lazy buggers are going back to Wiset for a rest, and I'm getting stuck going to teach English. So I was none too happy because I thought, here, I'm getting picked on here. I've got to be a leader here. I've got to step up and go and teach the blimmin' English, and I don't want to. Worse still, I had to get into Pon's car to get there. Pon's car frustrates me because it breaks down, so it's hot. The car breaks down, my back is sore. These buggers are going back for a rest. I'm getting stuck teaching English down the road. So anyway, long story short, we go there, and basically we get there, we split into 2 teams, okay? And there's Mitch and I. And these kids were so grateful for us being there. So we did, my mother's name is, my father's name is, we did the cities, we did the towns, and they spoke brilliant English. You know what God said to me? You took the worst attitude you could, and I've shown you how you can open your eyes, and I would go back to that place tomorrow. It was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. Just give me a sec. And those kids were so grateful for Westerners coming to talk to them to speak English. And if I've ever need a reason or I've been called to do this, I got that on that particular day because it was so rewarding. I have done, of all the things I've done in my insurance career, all the things I've done in life, yes, I've got a wonderful wife, I've got an amazing family, an incredible church, but I will never forget that 1 hour I spent. You know what Pon does? She bribes the parents who are Buddhists that she'll teach them English, and then she reads them a Bible story. So when we did the end of our English lesson, Pon gets the book out, reads them a Bible story for 15 to 20 minutes. These kids listen to every single word. Now, they may never convert to Christianity, but they listen to a Bible story once a week. So if you want to know how to get rewarded to go and step out in a hot, sticky environment, come and experience what we experienced that day. It was an incredible thing, and God really changed my heart. You heard what Graham said about God changes your heart. When you get days like that, God changes your heart. And I can't explain it, I can only describe it to you.
I'm actually going to read mine because there's a few things I want to make sure that I say. I'd just like to, my name's Petra, for anyone that doesn't know me. I'd also like to say I wasn't one of those lazy buggers. I was there. When the previous mission group shared their experience and adventures, so 18 months prior, one of the testimonies caught my interest and it stayed with me. It created a small spark in me of interest. End result, I ended up going on this trip. The hidden blessing of the trip was the freedom for the trip to be about my own walk with God whilst being part of a team. The pre-trip OMF training, which is extremely good, supports the opportunity for God to work within our lives whilst we're actually giving out to others. I was so pleased that I didn't need to do a stage drama or a singing item. To also personally experience the extent of SABC involvement, it's my turn, and support was heartening. The training, the prayer partners, the prayers, the oversight, those that gave to the team to pass on to the Thai, those who waved us off at the airport. SABC, you are a good people, and I really want you to know that. Each doing your bit, which gave me a whole experience. Thank you very much, sincerely. Pon and Lek are an amazing team. Pon's the main leader, and Lek is the most faithful right hand. Their main focus is to spread the good news of Jesus Christ in everything they do. They run the church more as a community centre. Outreach was the norm, including an open door policy. And those that were too old to keep up with Pon and Lek helped back home looking after Pon's sister who needed 24/7 care. Everyone played a part. A community centre, not because that's how they got funding for it, but because their hearts were about people getting to know Christ, whether they were old, young, family, orphaned, in prison, or wealthy. With the same level of commitment to spreading the gospel, they made a truly dynamic team. Their dreams and visions centred around how to spread the gospel and how to develop Christians with their own strong faith. We assisted in a parenting course that Pon had networked with. A grandfather that's looking after a grandchild, a family who took an abandoned young boy, solo mums, families, gathered together monthly. Starts with family games that separate into two groups. Lek looking after the children while Pon works with the adults. Lek is 64 years old and runs around with the kids, is the IT person and the backbone of their musical team. She's truly an amazing woman. They had organised for our team to share tips about parenting, and we shared the good, the bad, and hard decisions we had made whilst parenting. The way their church members worked together and fellowship together was inspiring for me. They had nothing and gave. When I say they have nothing, they sometimes miss meals so they can give and pay bills. Our team had, and we gave. Being there, you couldn't help but want to support the amazing and energetic life that Pon and Lek live because of how genuinely passionate they are. So what happened to my earlier small spark? It ignited and became a flame. I'm aware a single flame can be put out easily, so I've joined the missions ministry team here at SABC, which is both overseas and New Zealand missions. And I encourage everyone to come to a meeting which is open to all, as Steve said earlier, even if it was to observe and listen only, and share your own spark and flame with others. Thank you.
True. All right, so one of the other things we did, we played 2 rounds of woodball while we were in Wiset. The first we played on the first day we were there, and this is a little bit of the course we played with. So it's a little game. There's a bat and a ball, and kind of a tee to hit the ball through. Basically like golf, in that you're wanting to minimise the amount of shots that you take to get from the start to the end. So we played a game, and we went around in like groups of 4-ish. So there was 2 of us and 2 of the local people. So we'd a little bit difficult to have a conversation with them, as you go. We shared in our victories and our kind of poor shots as well. Mostly our poor shots, not their poor shots. We're just kind of like being there together. But at the end of each game, we'd kind of celebrate and have a chat. So we sat down for our first one, just a general light chat, not too much happening, and just kind of had little conversations. But we went to a second round, and a truly special experience again, where both times the teams that we played with were incredibly open and loved us being there, and we loved being there too. Truly loved it. But after the second round, we shared a meal together. So we brought a little bit along, and they brought a bit along for the meal. But we just had little conversations with them about who we were and what we were in Thailand for. I remember one of the points that reminded me the most, or still sticks with me the most through this conversation was, where is he? He's the guy here in the red hat. After the game, we were sitting at the table and we were talking about who Pon was and a little bit about faith. And he pops out of the blue that his niece actually goes along to Pon's church. And we were like, oh, true, that's awesome. And it was almost like you could see in him that he was showing off to us about how his niece went along to Pon's church and how it wasn't something that was a burden or a problem or something that was socially unacceptable to him. But even though he said, I'm still Buddhist, and where he was in his current journey, but you could see that it was actually open to hearing about and having someone in his family follow God and know God there. And we were surprised about it. But for a little demonstration of what Woodball is, we've got one here for you.
The ladies all love Mitch, the young girls, the old ladies, they love Mitch, so he's not going to tell you that. So hang on, before he does this, so basically what he's got to do, he has to hit, so these normally have metal spikes at the two sides, okay, and he's got to hit this and it's got to flip over, so it's actually quite a test for him because he misses, and he's missed a few practice shots this morning. It's a bit embarrassing, but we'll give it, no, go back, you're not doing that close. All right. Let's see if the magic still exists. Oh. We'll give him 3 goes. We will have these in the cafe afterwards, and kids can have a go. And adults can have a go. We've got 2 sets. All right, who's up next? It's you, mate. Mr. Speaker.
Second round. Okay, I want to talk about the land that Pon is buying. Okay, so before we went over the trip, Steve said to the group, okay, on this trip, we're going to meet up towards the end in a cafe. I want you to tell me what God's put on your heart about God's land. And I was thinking, me? God talking to me about God's land, about Pon's land? I don't know how that's going to work, okay? And he put me on the spot. And once again, my anxiety sort of up a little bit, thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to hear God? And I didn't know anything. And so during the trip, I had a bit of a strategy, okay? I think when we get to the cafe, okay, I'll let everybody speak first, listen to what they have to say, and I'll just wing it, okay, what I'm going to say. Anyway, towards the end of our trip in Wiset, we spent a night at a resort with Pon and Lek and some friends, and I got to talk to Pon through Jeanette about the land. And she's talking about this land. And I kid you not, if I had a blank canvas and some paint and a paintbrush, I could have painted it quite clearly what God put on me what that land's going to look like. She was talking about 1/3 of the land's going to be like vegetable gardens and trees for the community. The next third of the land's going to be the buildings. Another third is going to be the little bit of car park concrete to do games on. And I was just blown away. And this image is just so clear. I thought I'll probably just go away by the end of the day. But the picture seemed to get more intense and quite clear. Anyway, when we get to this meeting, okay, around the coffee table, guess who's the first person to speak about what God had to say? Well, I was the first one off the rank. It was just quite clear. So I understand the passion that Pon's got for his land, okay? And I know that God's going to put a church on that piece of land. It's not just going to be a church, but also it's going to be a building to serve the community in Wiset. Yep.
Prior to going to Thailand, Jeanette shared Pon's vision of buying a land and building a church. I had absolute peace about it. So I went to Thailand and I wanted to see the land, touch it with my hand and pray. And that was one of my objectives to be able to do. But my connection to the land was to grow much deeper. Pon needed to raise the level of the land to protect it from annual flooding. They get annual flooding that's coming through, and it's June now. Is that right, Jeanette? Yeah. So she needed to raise that land higher than road level. She had raised about 80% of the funds for 100 trucks of dirt. As a team, we did a quick calculation of the balance required, and we donated the shortfall. In fact, we exceeded it, and Pon organised 120 truckloads of dirt the week we were there, and we were able to see the transformation of a weedy plot to a clean plot of ground, as you've just seen. But prior to the trip, there was one person who gave financially to one of our team members. That team member decided to share it with the whole team to cover some of our expenses. The team was able to give generously towards the development of the land. That one initial generous gift actually also became part of the foundation of the church to be built. Being part of the transformation gave me the desire to be part of her vision further. I was hooked in her dream. With my heart pumping for the desire to see the land fully prepped and paid, my brain starting to kick into action of how, and I start dreaming for my part of building a church on Thailand.
Okay, let's bring it home. All right, you can probably go to my first slide, Mitch. All right, so am I back on? Back on? You can hear me? Okay, all right. I might have pushed a button. To put it into perspective, so in February last year, we came home and gave a vision. And that vision was centred around people resource in Wiset for Pon. We felt it would be a 3-year project. We felt that maybe as a church we could potentially fund that. And we had an approximate idea of about $20,000 as far as the cost would be. So the plan was that Pon would go and find a biblically trained, theologically trained person or couple to come to Wiset. The challenge was that the people that go to Bible college in Thailand are generally sent by their own church. So the challenge we had was, it was going to be very hard to find someone to send to Bible college or who was already in Bible college who would want to come to Wiset. And frankly, there's not a lot of motivation to go to a place like Wiset unless, I don't know, there's a financial incentive, because it's not exactly a place you want to go and visit in a hurry. So we prayed, and the problem we found was that people just weren't available. There are people in Wiset who could be that person down the track, but we spent 2023 unsuccessfully finding someone to be that pastor. So to take it to the next level, you can flick over. Okay, so God has told Pon, Wiset is home, build a church and a pastor will come. Pon's words are, I'm going nowhere and I will die here. I guess the key thing for this trip was that we got to spend time with Lek and with Pon. We get a lot of good communication from Jeanette, so don't get me wrong here. But this time around, we were deliberate in our conversations. I wanted to talk to Pon. We pay Pon $250 a month out of our church budget to fund her living expenses. I know that's not enough because I know she's spending $50 of that on Sunday school supplies. Now, I could say to Lek, do not spend your living expenses on Sunday school supplies, but she's Thai. She won't listen to me. She'll do it anyway because that's her commitment. So I just accept it. There's no point in me trying to control what Lek is going to do. So I needed to know from Lek, well, what are your long-term plans? Are you going to be here for 1 year, for 2 years, for 10 years? Are you going to die in Wiset as well? Because part of the plan of this land is to put a little wee house. It's 1,500 square metres, which I'll show you shortly, is to put a little house on there for them to live. Doesn't need to be very big, and Lek can actually afford to fund that herself because there's some family inheritance money coming. But my concern was that she's got a sick sister or mother, Jeanette? Sister. So is that going to draw her away? The answer is no. She is as committed to the Wiset ministry as Pon is. So Lek is going nowhere. I've heard it with my own eyes. When I asked Pon in this meeting at Prabat, who's going to pay for the land, she basically put her hand in the air and said, God's going to pay for it. So I sat there like a business meeting. Normally in a business meeting, you've got a rhetorical position where you can come back and start to argue the point. You can take it down a pathway. But how do I sit there and say, God's not going to pay for it? Well, he's told me he is. I didn't say it, obviously. So the reality was, we heard from Pon direct, I'm going to build a church on the land that I've paid for, and God will bring a pastor. I'm staying here. I'm going nowhere. So what it said to my heart, and it really melted my heart in the context of, we have a long-term commitment here. I don't know why I'm called to this. I don't know. Jeanette's legacy means a heck of a lot to me. I went in 2012. I went in 2023. I'm drawn to it. I can't explain it. I guess we all know in this room, when we get called to something, it magnetizes, it energizes. We get excited about it. I want to tell everybody, and I'm here telling you why this prospect is such an exciting thing to do. And I guess the last piece there is, well, the last two pieces, Pon will own the resource piece. She said, let me take that away. I will find a pastor because God's going to provide a church. And I didn't actually favour the land in 2023. So when I first saw it, and you saw the picture earlier, it was overgrown. I couldn't see the back fence. I couldn't see the side fences. But then I go there on the Wednesday or the Thursday, and again, I can't explain it. All of a sudden, I see a vision. My team can see a vision. I can see the garden down the back. I can see the church. I can see a community building. I can see a couple of little houses at the side. And in Wiset, you don't need a car park because people either walk to church or bring a motorcycle. So you don't need a car park like St Albans out the back. We don't need 250 car parks. You just need somewhere for 150 motorcycles if the church ever gets to that size. All of a sudden, I said to myself, I'm walking on this land. God, why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me? I wasn't in favour of the land. Why can I see a vision? Why can I see what you're trying to do here? Why can I see a pastor? Why can I see a growing church? Why are you doing this to me? And he said to me, because I've told Pon to buy the land, which he did, and I'm going to build a church. And I'm asking you to support it, and I'm asking St Albans to support it. I said, okay, how do I deny that? That's good enough for me. So here's the details. She's paid $1 million baht. 48,000 New Zealand dollars. $700,000 of that, or 700,000 baht, I should say, is loans. Either interest-free, or there is a little bit of interest she's actually paying, but when you walk on the land, you actually see and feel the vision. So when we got back, we had to go to the elders for the new vision. Yes, we knew that it was going to be a challenge because $32,000 is the balance, or $33,500, I should say, is the balance she owes. So the elders have given us the approval to run a love offering to this church to actually pay the balance of that land. So the bottom line then, where it talks about $300 per month for Pon. So I talked about before that we give Lek $250, I'm increasing that to $300 paid out of mission team funds that the church gives us. We're also going to fund to Pon for 3 months to December, $300 per month. But either late November, if the elders will let me do it, or in early December, we will do a love offering to raise $33,500 to pay for the land. What does it mean long term? It doesn't mean we're committing to a church. It doesn't mean we're committing 2 million baht to build buildings. It means nothing like that. All it means is that we're actually going to help Pon mortgage-free this land, so then her vision of what God has said can be real going forward. If we raise $100,000, we'll send that to her, because I can tell you it'll go into a bank account. Every cent she gets at the moment, so if anyone's sending money to her, she puts it on the land. Doesn't buy anything, she sacrifices food. I've seen her finances. She doesn't have enough money to live, just because she's putting every cent she has into the land. So in the coffee shop on the last day in Bangkok, everybody's vision was St Albans could get behind this land. We could help her pay for it. So one of the things we have to do is do our due diligence. We believe that the ownership structure allows the land not to fall into the wrong hands. Pon is the decision maker, so the decision is to build a church. We believe that the current ownership structure doesn't put that in jeopardy, because what we don't want to do is raise $33,500 if you agree to do it, and then find that the land goes into different ownership. So we will give you those assurances nearer the time. But I can just summarize it this way. The 2023 trip was incredible. We came back with an amazing vision, and it was long term. This time around, I was worried about the weather, because it was going to be hot. I was worried about the relationships within the team, because we didn't know each other all that well. There were new relationships building. I was worried we didn't have a lot of downtime. But God came, He went, and He conquered our hearts, and He conquered our hearts in so many different ways I can't explain. I can only describe the situation. But some of you have been on short-term mission trips. Talk to Heather Miller. See the excitement in her eyes, and what she says when she talks about going to Africa. It just burns in your heart, and you know that the little things make such a difference. I look at $33,500 and I say, wow, 1,500 square metres, and that's all it costs to own the balance of it. It's an incredible thing we can do. So I hope as a church we get behind it. So our new vision is we want to help Pon pay for the land. And I hope you get behind it. Hope you pray, think, consider what God would have us do. And come December, we raise $50,000. She's got some change to build a church at some stage. And that's us. Thank you. I should have called you up earlier. And ask us lots of questions.